unfortunately, like we determined, we won't be able to see you.
Yeah, it's too bad. I would have gotten my other laptop had I known.
Not a problem. So let me just introduce you briefly to the students. We have this year's crop of sabermetric students with us. They're interested in starting groups. A long time ago, her project was on weather data. And it really was a great idea way back when getting data was really challenging. Kim also was the third baseman on the softball team.
Utility. I started as a pitcher.
Pitcher, then utility for Tufts softball, but then she parlayed that into a ball girl for the Red Sox, and that's a true story. From the ball girl, just imagine this, right? Tufts softball player translates interest in baseball through baseball analytics class into a job with the Red Sox, and you can tell us about that interview. But then she gets a full-time job with the Red Sox. Then she's in charge of the 100th year celebration of Fenway Park. She basically made that thing happen while she worked for the Red Sox. Then she goes to Harvard Law School, gets her degree from Harvard Law School. Then she gets hired by Lucchino to be the in-house counsel for the Pawtucket Red Sox. Then the Pawtucket Red Sox make a deal to move to Worcester, which I'm sure Kim was very much involved with. So Kim Miner is I brag about her all the time. She's a huge success story. Are you embarrassed yet, Kim?
Very. That's the best intro I've ever gotten.
What's that? Sorry?
The best introduction I've ever gotten. Thank you.
No, you're actually lying now, but that's okay. That's okay. Basically, tell us about the first interview you had with the Red Sox when you were just trying to get a job while you were a Tufts student.
Sure. And can you hear me fine?
I'm going to turn up the volume. I think it's
okay.
This might or might not work. I don't know.
All right.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Kim.
I don't know what you did. I can't see,
but. Okay. Let's try that again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So it was about my first interview with the Red Sox? Was that the question?
Yeah. You were still at Tufts then, right?
I was, yeah. I was a senior. And actually it was a Tufts connection. Another softball player who graduated a few years before me had a friend who was in HR at the Red Sox. So she just introduced us. That was it. And I came in for an interview to the Red Sox. I honestly not even interviewing for a specific position, just, a little bit of an informational interview, but also, I said I was interested in anything entry level. I was graduating. I think this was in maybe fall of my senior year. So I went in to Fenway, had a couple of good informational interviews, expressed I was interested in just getting involved however I could, and ended up getting a position as a Fenway ambassador, which if you've been to Fenway or if you go in the future, keep an eye out for them. They're all wearing like red polo shirts. It says Fenway ambassadors. And basically their job is to be fan services, make fans happy, fix problems. You also see them running around on the field during pregame ceremonies. When they have God Bless America, they're running the people on and off, the veterans on the dugout. So you're kind of just doing everything all around the ballpark. So they ended up slotting me into that position. And because I played softball in college, they asked me if I wanted to be a ball girl. So that was never on the table when I got in what I was interested in working there. They just said, hey, you're eligible. Do you want to do it? So I said, obviously, sure. So I was a Fenway ambassador, was my first job there, and a ball girl as well.
Best play you ever made as a ball girl. Tell us about it.
Ooh. I wish I had. No, I do actually have video, mainly because my parents, I think, took their cell phone and held it up to the TV. I made one good backhanded play. And I guess out of muscle memory or something, I sort of pivoted to throw. Obviously, I didn't. And Jerry Remy called it out on TV and said, "Oh, look, she was ready to throw to second." And that was a cool one. So my parents saved that one. So I think I've got it somewhere.
Wow, you should put that on YouTube. But then, so tell us about the 100th. Tell us more about the 100th year celebration at Fenway and what you were involved with that whole thing. What year was that too, by the way?
2012, April 20th, 2012 was the 100th anniversary of the opening of Fenway Park. I will forever remember the date. This was also when I was still just an ambassador, which is an hourly position. I was getting paid above minimum wage, but like $1 more, not much, and doing a lot of hours. And so they pegged two of us to sort of take the charge. And in connection with, and my biggest project was on the April 20th, 2012, we brought in 213 former Red Sox players. Some live locally, some were living internationally at the time. So we brought them all into Fenway and we did a really strictly choreographed ceremony. Everyone came out at a certain time. Dr. Charles Steinberg, which is a name you might recognize, orchestrated the ceremony. And so we did all of that. It was really cool. It was really neat to be a part of. There was a book for it that I got to help edit where we wrote about Fenway's history, whole bunch of stuff. But it was really neat because I got to, number one, talk to a lot of former players, which was so cool. And I grew up in Concord, Mass. So I did grow up a Red Sox fan, and getting to talk to some of these guys was my favorite. I had a voicemail from Nomar Garcia-Parra that I have since lost, and I can't find it anywhere, but maybe I've got it in like one of my emails somewhere. I wish I still had that. That was probably my biggest sort of fangirl moment, but I got to do that, and it was cool because I was working with everyone in the Red Sox organization to make this happen. It was pretty leanly staffed, so it was a really neat experience. You had to be quick on your feet. And I like to think that I proved myself a bit in that setting. But in any case, it was an awesome experience, and I have a lot of great memories from that. And again, I was, just like an hourly employee at the time, which, is something I do recommend to people, is getting in however you can. You don't need to be above any sort of position.
Any questions yet? Just let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So tell us more about how Worcester became the home for the AAA team, and how you left Pawtucket.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone in your class is from Rhode Island. The Paw Sox have been in Rhode Island for decades now, 44 years, I think. And we're in a 76-year-old ballpark. We have a great relationship in Rhode Island. We're really fairly successful there. Corporate sponsorships are great. Attendance has been iffy, which you can attribute in part to our old ballpark. But so we have a really old ballpark. When it rains, the suites get water coming through the ceilings. I mean, it's really bad. And so we pursued a study of our park. It figured out it wasn't really in shape where it could even be repaired. So we knew we needed a new ballpark. And this is a whole sort of theory unto itself, but minor league baseball is in many ways very different from Major League Baseball. And one of the ways that they're different is that minor league baseball largely depends on some form of public assistance to get a ballpark. I was actually an econ major at Tufts, and I did my thesis on public financing of the Seattle Seahawks new stadium. So I read all the literature. There's a ton of debate on whether it's a good public investment, and I'd be happy to talk more about that. But minor league baseball in particular has historically been funded in large part through public investments in ballparks. And in this instance, we were going to pursue that as well. Not any sort of new funding, but funding that over the course of the ballpark lease would pay for itself through user taxes, taxes on people spending money on tickets and food and all that. So we pursued that. We tried to work with the state of Rhode Island, and I don't want to go on too much, but I'd be happy to talk more about it if anyone's interested. Rhode Island is really complicated politically, and I got a lot more familiar with Rhode Island politics than I ever thought I would. Basically, at the end of the day, we just didn't have a leader helping us to sort of push our project through. Many of you also might be familiar with Kurt Schilling and his 38 Studios video game startup. He got public funding for that in Rhode Island, and then the company went bust, and the state was left paying a large chunk of that. And so people felt burned. And although video games are very different from baseball, he was a baseball player. So people associated us and said, we don't want to do that again. So our timing wasn't great. So in any case, for a whole bunch of reasons, it didn't work out great in Rhode Island. And in the meantime, we started talking to Worcester. And the experience in Worcester was totally different. The politicians were collaborative. They all spoke to each other. They were all working towards a solution for us. And it was just, it seems to me like a good fit. And this is more just my personal opinion, but I think Worcester and the Paw Sox are in a similar position. The upward trajectory of both, I think, is similar. And one of the best things about Worcester is that there's a really strong population of young professionals there, which is a market that we don't get at all in Pawtucket. And so with an urban ballpark, we're hoping that we can become a cool place for people to hang out. If you ever get the chance, I would go to ballparks in Durham, Charlotte, North Carolina, El Paso. Those ballparks all have that sort of feeling, and they're some of the most successful, and that's what we're after. So we're in the process of right now of starting to hire professionals to design our ballpark, and our goal is to be playing in Worcester in 2021.
Are you familiar with the Wareham Gateman, this Cape Cod League?
I am, and that hat got used. At the very end of that hat with the red and sort of the Red Sox font got used at the end for Worcester Red Sox, which was not our idea, but some people use that, so I am.
Right. Well, the point I'm asking because their font is definitely the Red Sox font.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And their W is probably something that, you know, somebody who's doing design work for the Worcester Red Sox must be seeing that going, oh, that's what we want, but it's the Wareham Gateman. We'll see how that plays out.
We will. We actually today we're interviewing one of our finalists for a designer who will work on the team name, the mascot, the logo, the ballpark logo. And maybe this is a good question for the group, actually. But an internal debate right now is whether it's a good idea to stick with the Red Sox name and a little bit of the sort of look and feel of Red Sox. The concept right now is we'll be called the Worcester Red Sox. We'll have some sort of a nickname. The default that everyone seems to be going with is Woo Sox, W-O-O, nickname for Worcester. But some folks say, no, you want something entirely different. You don't want it to be Red Sox. You want it to have its own unique personality. And to be honest, we're debating that a little bit. There's mixed success in minor league baseball. So I'm open to all ideas. I think we're going to focus group this a little bit too. So certainly if anyone has in the class has an opinion, I'd love to hear it.
I'm waiting for anybody to chime in. Yeah.
It depends on like what kind of fans they are in Worcester, because if they're not Red Sox fans, they may not be inclined to go to the Blue Sox games. But if it's something applied to Worcester, then they may be more inclined, like the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, which is a Mets AA affiliate.
Yeah.
Which consulting agency are you using? Are you using the like kind of trendy one right now that's did the Rumble Ponies, the Trash Pandas, I think, down in Rocket City?
So that's Brandiose is that company. That's one of the ones we're interviewing. We haven't picked our finalist, but yeah, that's Brandiose. And you're right. They are very hip right now, and they're very minor league baseball. Their logos are a little bit cartoony. And I think they're more the school of thought that you should create an independent brand separate from your big league clubs. And they've had a lot of success with that too. I think their logos, the El Paso Chihuahuas is actually the most successful one. And like the Trash Pandas, which will be coming out soon. I think that was one of theirs too.
Yeah, but since I'm the oldest guy here and even older than you, Kim, the old guys like me are going to want it to be the Woo Sox.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want it to be affiliated like the Paw Sox,
yeah.
the local team that's nearby. You know, if you make it the Rumble Ponies or some derivative, we're going to be like, what? It's the Woo Sox. So just remember that, okay?
Yeah.
The old school may not be what you're looking for, but they might react to the trash cans or the Rumble Ponies or the milk biscuits or whatever you call them. The Limp Biscuits. So yeah.
Oh gosh, Worcester's got some things it's known for. I guess the smiley face was created there and some other things. So I'm sure that whoever we hire will probably have some fun with those sort of crazy ideas in addition to Red Sox derivatives. But yeah, that's basically that is the essence of the debate. So I don't know where we're going to go.
No one else has a question. I have a question. So obviously minor league baseball players get promoted a lot, either to your team or to the majors thereafter. Have you ever thought there was a player in your on your team in AAA that you thought was just going to be a stud in the majors and just wasn't at all?
Ooh. Actually, yeah. So Sam Travis, who constantly goes up and down from the Red Sox and the Paw Sox and is on the expanded roster right now, is really good. And in the minor leagues, he looks terrific. He hits so many home runs. And he just hasn't clicked at the Red Sox. And Andy, you've seen that. It just hasn't worked out for him. And he's a nice guy too. And so I'm bummed about him. I'm trying to think. There are a couple other guys who I would root for. The one who probably just on performance alone deserves a shot at some point is actually Rusney Castillo, of all people, who we've had on the Paw Sox for years now, makes many, many, many times what anyone else makes on the roster. You always know which car is his in the lot because it's incredibly expensive and it changes all the time too. I was told he just bought a Maserati on a whim on a road trip a month ago. So he's always been kind of, out of place in minor league baseball because of his salary, but he actually has performed incredibly well this year. But because of luxury tax considerations, he has not been brought up, and I don't know if he will be.
So is there ever a player where the Red Sox are considering calling them up and the Paw Sox, Woo Sox, whatever, your organization maybe gives the Red Sox a little shit because, they're giving you ticket sales and concession sales by getting people to the gate and you want to keep that going? Or is there any maintenance of that relationship where you want to get a prospect?
Yes. We have no say. So all the players are Red Sox employees. We have an agreement. It's the PDC is what it's called, where we have an agreement with the Red Sox so that we will provide a ballpark and we provide the clubbies, we provide the coaches. They are ours, but the players are all employees of the Red Sox. And so we just basically provide the venue for them. So we don't get a lot of say, but we do obviously have a really good relationship with the Red Sox, in particular because so many of us came from the Red Sox to the Paw Sox. So we express our opinions. I don't think it means anything. I don't think we have persuaded Dave Dombrowski one way or the other. Ones that come to mind recently, Rafael Devers, I think we got for 10 games, and he was a lot of fun, and it was really great to watch him, and he got pulled up very quickly. And Dave Dombrowski also seems to be fond of pulling guys straight from AA. So we actually never got Andrew Benintendi at the Paw Sox, and I would have loved to see him a little bit. So yeah, we give them a hard time, but we have no say at all, and it's sort of part of the process, I guess. But yes, absolutely, we're hoping for guys. But we get, when David Price rehabs, when Pedroia rehabs, we get them, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess that leads to the question I was wondering about. Like, when you do have a guy who maybe is rehabbing, or some star players who's in the minor league for some reason, is there like an extra element to the event? Like, I know, like, I'm a Giants fan. Like, when Bumgarner's rehabbing and he pitched for the San Jose Giants, like the single A team, like the stadium was packed and they had all these extra promotions and stuff. So I was wondering, like, are there like extra considerations when that sort of thing happens?
There are. From an operational standpoint, we do usually try to do some extra promotions. We obviously advertise, we push on social media, so we do those kinds of things. One of the things I've been most surprised about in minor league baseball, because again, I started at the Red Sox. I was a fan of the Red Sox, so I've learned the minor league business really well the past few years, but I didn't know it before. And one of the biggest surprises to me is how we don't draw as many fans for the players as I would have thought. In fact, we draw very few fans for the players. When David Price is down, when Dustin Pedroia is down, there's a slight blip in attendance, but they do not sell the place out. I do think part of that is because of where the team is and what the ballpark is. And I think when we move to Worcester, if we get a star Red Sox player to come down, it probably will cause more of an attendance bump than we see currently. Because I think there is a little bit more of a connection from Worcester to the Red Sox, but it's not as much of a bump as you would think, which also as a baseball fan is kind of baffling. Like, wouldn't you love to see Dustin Pedroia up close and personal? You see him get a lot of at-bats. It's incredibly good bang for your buck to go watch those players at the minor league level. But it does not move the needle like you would expect. And that kind of goes to the school of thought that minor league baseball is just another form of entertainment. It's a little bit less of sports driven. People usually don't know all the players' names, but they come for a good time with their family. They come because it's cheap and because they can go and get good food and be outside and mingle. And that's actually a huge factor when we go to look at how we're going to design our ballpark in Worcester. In terms of like baseball traditionalists, you sit in your seat and you look at the field and you watch the game. Maybe you keep score. Fans don't do that at the minor league level. So we're going to have few seats, basically as few as possible. And we're going to have group areas, and we're going to have ways for people to walk around the ballpark and move, because they're not there just to watch the game. They're there to do a million other things too. And most of it involves around socializing and food and beverage. So that's been one of the biggest surprises to me, is that, we're not busting at the seams when we have Dustin Pedroia down in Pawtucket. But it's just the reality of minor league baseball and how the business works.
So when picking this ballpark, did park factors like a hitter's ballpark or a pitcher's ballpark come into mind for a main office? Do they care, or do they have a preference?
So, we are going to have a lot of conversations with the Red Sox player development, baseball operations folks. So they will give us input as to things they would like to see. I don't know. I guess I don't know yet whether we will get any sort of insight as to, we prefer it to be a pitcher's park or a hitter's park or anything like that. One of the biggest factors that's been discussed is having dimensions similar to Fenway, because for player development, you could get guys used to the strange dimensions of the outfield wall. You can get the outfielders used to playing off the monster, and get players used to that, which I think obviously makes a lot of sense and is at this point seems kind of assumed that we'll do that. We need to make sure the geometry works on the site. But that's been discussed. And then one of the other things that I think will come up, and I'm sure the Red Sox will probably voice to us, is the back of house rehab and training facilities. So that if they do send guys to the AAA club who are rehabbing from an injury. They have top-notch amenities, the tubs and the training rooms and all of that. A lot of times they send players down to JetBlue Park, the spring training facility in Florida, because their facilities are really good. So I think us being able to provide nice facilities 45 minutes away from Fenway is really desirable to the Red Sox. But we haven't had those conversations yet, other than, just preliminary, but they will be part of the process. And minor league baseball and major league baseball also have facility standards that you have to meet. So it won't tell you the dimensions of the field, but it will give you minimums. So the foul pole has to be minimum, I don't know what it is, number of feet away from home, all of those sort of basics too. So you have those parameters around you as well. So we do have a number of guideposts to go with.
Yeah, I would say that, the footprint of the field would be useful, just to getting used to the footprint in the wall. But beyond that, you want to make sure the orientation, I'd say that's much more important, that it's you get the same sort of the sun patterns and the lighting. That would be a big key to me if I were trying to design the AAA park. That's just what do I know?
No, you're totally right about that. And actually, on our specific site in Worcester, that's gotten a little bit of attention because from an urban planning standpoint, you think you'd want to pivot the ballpark a little bit from what we've been discussing initially, and but you probably wouldn't, because it would mess with the sun orientation, like you were saying. I think, what is it? The rule of thumb, I think, is usually it's got to be third base pointing north, and I think you could flip it to south as well, but anything in between, other than a few degrees off, is less than desirable. So yeah, that will be tricky. And our site in Worcester is nestled between a railway, and we've got the overpass there, so you can't turn the field as much as you might like to. So, but you're right, that is super important to, I think, the Red Sox and to us, and also to fans too. If we can keep fans from having to stare into the sun, that would be good.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about the transition to law school. Like, what you're working for the Red Sox, it's hourly, or and then something made you decide to apply to law schools, and then something made you go down to Pawtucket. So what were those kind of forks in the road for you? What were those decision points for you along the way?
Yeah, sure. So I guess law school I was someone for whom law school was always on the radar from like high school on. It was not that I knew I was going to go, but I thought it always seemed attractive to me. And so that was, on my radar. And one of the things I saw at the Red Sox, and I also worked at a law firm the summer before I started working at the Red Sox, was that, number one, I liked, what lawyers seem to do roughly on a day-to-day. I mean, it varies greatly, but in terms of the overall way of thinking, it was attractive to me. And one of the things I noticed is that lawyers get to be involved in some of the big decisions of a business, and in particular of a sports team, and get to be a source of information, but also get to give advice. And that was something that to me was incredibly attractive. I wanted to be able to counsel someone on making a decision, and try to gather the best information I could to give good advice. So that was really attractive to me. And so I went to law school after the Red Sox. One of the best things about so I only applied to law schools in Boston because I thought that I could keep my job going at the Red Sox while I was in law school, and I did. My first summer in law school, I worked in business development for the marketing arm, Fenway Sports Management, of the Red Sox, and so I worked there. I continued as a ball girl for a year or two of law school, I think, until I stopped. I worked in ballpark planning. I did work in legal. So I worked around. So it it was good to maintain that while I was in law school. In law school, I did intern for 1 year at a law firm and thought that was where I was going to go. And I did go to a law firm for less than a year after law school because the general advice was you should get experience in a law firm, get trained, and then you go in-house. That's when you look to moving to a team. But I had developed a relationship with Larry Lucchino when I was at the Red Sox. He was the president and CEO there at the time. We developed a good working relationship. I had done some special projects for him in law school, a lot of like research-based projects. That was the time when his group purchased the Paw Sox. So he had me do some legal research on minor league baseball leases. So we had a good working relationship. And I guess as they got into their ballpark process, he realized he was going to need more legal help than he really wanted to pay for with outside counsel. So we met for a catch-up dinner. I think I was like 7 months into work at a law firm, and he said, we need a full-time lawyer. Is there any chance you're still interested? And I said, yeah, of course. This is what I wanted to do. So in that way, it wasn't a hard decision for me. It felt a little risky because I was going in-house sooner than I thought, and there was no lawyer before. And as far as I know, there are no lawyers in-house for minor league teams, any other minor league teams still. And so it's sort of uncharted territory going into a team where they didn't have a lawyer before. So now, I could be perceived as the person who says no all the time. So I try really hard not to be that. I try to get to yes as much as I can. And, I didn't have anyone to train me. So it was a little scary in that respect, but especially you can gather from my background, that was what I was looking to do. And that had always been my goal. And I also knew that at the minor league level, you get the opportunity to do things that you couldn't do at the big league level. I mean, all the meetings I've been in, the decisions I've been part of, the documents I've drafted, I would have been one lawyer on a larger team at the big league level. And so if, I guess in talking to people who might be interested in sports, I would say minor league teams, smaller or newer sports leagues are a great way to get a tremendous amount of experience right away. And then you can move, if you choose, to a different type of league, maybe one where it's a little bit more structured and hierarchical. But it's been a lot of fun. The minor leagues are much less structured than the big leagues. And that was attractive to me as well as I made the transition.
So one last question. We have to wrap up soon. Any students have a? Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like Pawtucket is going to be completely left high and dry come 2021, as the New York Penn team is rumored to be moving there. How do you think the fan base in Pawtucket and the Rhode Island community will respond to a demotion from AAA to short season A?
Well, I think there are a lot of people who would see that as a demotion, like you said. So I think there's the risk of that sentiment. One of the things that maybe doesn't get as much play, although I think it's still out there. And one of the really unique things about baseball in particular is that you have territories. It's true of the big league clubs and it's true of the minor league clubs. So they have a map where each team has a sort of territory. Sometimes teams share territories, but it's their home territory. And ours for the Paw Sox right now includes Rhode Island, and it includes parts of Massachusetts, including Worcester. And the Massachusetts parts are shared with the Red Sox, but they're still our home territory. When we move to Worcester, our territory won't change because we're just moving within our territory. So we actually still control the territory in Rhode Island. So one of the things that people don't always realize is that we actually have to approve the move of any minor league or major league affiliated team into Rhode Island. It's ours to control. It's obviously a really unique feature of baseball, but that's the way it is. So we absolutely might. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But that's something people know. You could always have an independent league team that's not affiliated. Those aren't party to the same territory limitations. But so there's some considerations like that. I think whoever, if a baseball team were to move to Pawtucket, they would need to address the facility problem still. They would either need to invest a lot of money into our current ballpark to fix it up or build maybe a smaller, newer ballpark. I don't know what the appetite will be. I know that there's a really strong feeling of loss for the city of Pawtucket. And so I think there's a desire to do something to sort of make things better for Pawtucket. So maybe the appetite will be there, and maybe that will bring a sense of pride, and people will be happy to go to a baseball game. You know, you've heard rumors of like soccer too, which I actually think would be pretty good. So I don't know what will happen. I think there's an appetite. You know, we've been successful there for 40 plus years. So I think there's a base to support the team. And even as we move to Worcester, we're hoping that we can bring some of those fans with us. It's still a shorter drive than it is to go to Fenway, and it's obviously a different experience. It's less expensive. So we're hoping too that we can maintain some of our fan base even when we move up north.
Well, Kim, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it. And so let's just give Kim a round of applause here. So we'll be in touch, Kim, and thanks again.
Yeah, not a problem. And I'd be happy to talk if anyone has any other questions or anything. And maybe I'll give you my PawSox email.
Yeah, just I'll get that email and I'll send it to the group. If they have further questions, I'll let them contact you.
All right.
I have to tell you a Larry Lucchino story someday. You know, he almost came to this class.
Really?
Yeah. No, he was meeting in Fenway with the nutritionist Tara, who's a friend of ours through the nutrition school. So Tara said, "Hey, these guys are teaching a baseball class at Tufts," and Larry said, "Let's go." And so they're heading out the door, but then he got a phone call, so he couldn't make it. So ask Larry if he remembers that. He probably doesn't.
Maybe I'll see if he can make good and actually come to a class. I'll see if I can. Arrange that. But his schedule that happens a lot with those last minute changes.
Ask him if he wants to come visit, and we'll have you both down and have some fun while here on the Medford campus.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
All right, Kim. Thanks so much. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.